So what does it actually mean to be gay? Involving or characterized by sexual attraction between people of the same sex. But is sexuality really to do with that, or is it more to do with the extent to which you fit in with your assigned gender role? For example, would the majority of the population find a male who wore makeup, a dress, and had long hair attractive? And it doesn't have to be that extreme at all. For example, if you look within the gay community, there's a lot of hate on feminine gays. I know the likes of Grindr and perhaps Gaydar aren't the best places to look, but a lot of the profiles are saying no feminine gays, straight acting guy looking for a similar thing. I mean, transgender people use these social norms all the time to pass as a gender of which they feel they are inside, but which they are not biologically. If you aren't familiar with the difference between gender and sex, gender being the identity that you assume that is usually related to being male or female, but not necessarily, for example, in the case of a third gender in Asia, and sex is your biological state as male or female or intersex. Quite rightly so that the transgender community wants to separate the concept of gender and sexuality. However, in a heterosexual society, the two are inextricably linked. Judith Butler, a lesbian feminist, also queer theorist, talks about this idea of institutionalized heterosexuality, which is the idea that if the majority of the population are either male or female, males and females want to identify themselves with that they are not attracted to. All this means, in very simple terms, is that opposites attract. But the performance of these two opposite genders, the way people choose to act and present themselves because of their gender identity, has changed throughout history. Just as clothes might come in and out of fashion, and just as ideologies change, so does beauty, our perception of beauty, and the way that we think that others are attractive or not, the way that we think people are living up to their gender roles or not, will change according to what is the archetype of the time. So what I'm trying to say is that perhaps you're not attracted to the same sex, but the same gender. But why is this important to being gay? Doesn't this relate to all types of sexualities? No. It is very important to the idea of heterosexuality versus homosexuality because, as I was saying, the construct of gender, or the gender binary, the difference between the two, is so reliant on heterosexuality or a compulsive heterosexuality. The fact that there are two different genders who are attracted to each other and they differentiate from each other. So when the idea of homosexuality gets thrown into the mix, people think, well, he's a guy and he's attracted to other guys. But in society, when you are attracted to men, you are feminine. So gay guys are feminine. And this attitude is so bad for the gay community because it raises questions like, you always notice with two gay guys, one is the muscly one and one is the smaller feminine one. Or they'll be like, so who's the man and who's the woman in the relationship? It's like, stop imposing your heterosexual values on my relationship. And this brings me on to my second really important point, which is when you say, I'm gay, it is not as simple as same-sex attraction or same-gender attraction. It brings on a whole load of stereotypes, brings loads of things come to mind, for example, femininity, the way you act, the way you dress, your interests. Society is going to try and put all of these things onto you because what you've done is you've moved from your gender norm, which is being a boy or a girl, and you've rejected the most vital part of that gender norm, which is to be attracted to the opposite sex. And so when you transfer to be saying, I'm gay, I'm homosexual, they try and replace that gender norm by putting a load of stereotypes on you instead. Now, I'm not bashing femininity amongst gays at all. Some people who are gay are feminine for a range of reasons. For example, being gender non-conforming when they're a child, that's much more common in gay people than straight people. Or perhaps you've shoved out the most important or vital part of what it is to me to be a boy or a girl, and you're thinking, I don't really care about gender norms anyway, I'm just going to forget them and act however I want, and therefore you're probably going to end up being slightly deviant anyway. So, I mean, who cares about that? And the truth is that the LGBT plus community comes in all shapes and sizes, in all different ways of acting, expressing themselves, all different types of interests. And the trouble is that when you say, I'm straight or I'm gay, it comes with so much unnecessary baggage that you have to spend your whole life either refusing or feeling like you should conform to. And to be honest, I think the problem is that when we give labels to humans, they end up being a bit dangerous. I hope you enjoyed my first ever video on YouTube. A lot of these ideas came from personal struggles that I went through and I'm still going through, so if you have anything that you want to respond to, please comment. But yeah, that's pretty much it, so bye!